Hello everyone and welcome to the North Carolina State Capitol. I'm Kara Dedman and I'm the museum curator here at the State Capitol. And thank you so much for joining us for our first NC Learn at Home opportunity here from the Capitol on this Throwback Thursday. We will be making a series of videos and releasing content every week, so thank you so much for tuning in. Today, we'd like to give you a taste of our tour and what it includes here at the Capitol, since you can't come out and visit us right now. So first, I'd like to give you an introduction to Raleigh, North Carolina, and why our Capitol is located here. So here in the Rotunda, let's first talk about the capital city. So most people know that Raleigh, North Carolina is our state capital and has been for quite some time, but a lot of times people don't realize that Raleigh was actually founded as a city to be the seat of North Carolina's state government. So during the colonial period and even in our early days of statehood, North Carolina's capital city moved from place to place. So our capital was actually wherever the General Assembly was convening at a given time or where our governor lived. So one of our really famous colonial capitals was New Bern. So here we have a photograph of Tryon Palace in New Bern. And Tryon Palace was the home of one of our colonial governors, William Tryon. So after the capital city of North Carolina kind of moved from place to place during the colonial and early state period, we see really a need for a permanent home for state government. So actually, it was decided that this spot for Raleigh was picked actually out of Wake County, and this plan for Raleigh's central downtown was laid out. And so in this plan, you'll actually see 5 squares designated for public use. And of course, this is a grid system. It was modeled after Philadelphia's city grid. And in the center of this plan, you will see a central square that's labeled Union Square. And this square was designated for the use of state government. And actually that little box there in the center says State House. So originally, the State House sat here on Union Square, and it was a building that looked something like this. So it was a bricked building, not very large rather. It was on the smaller side compared to some of the other state government buildings, but it accommodated the needs that North Carolina had at the time. Eventually, there was an expansion made to this building, and it looked like this. So this is the remodeled State House in the 1820s. Now, unfortunately, North Carolina lost this building because they were actually seeking to fireproof the roof. And they were soldering with zinc on the roof, attempting to redo that space, and ended up, ironically, burning the building down. So North Carolina lost this first State House in 1831, but that led to the construction of the Capitol building. Originally, this building housed all 3 branches of North Carolina's state government. So here on the first floor was the executive branch and the office of the governor. On the second floor was the legislative branch. So we had the House and Senate sitting there. And actually originally the Supreme Court, so the judicial branch, operated from the 3rd floor. So this building opened in June of 1840. It was constructed again after that first State House burned down in 1831. Through the 1830s, this building was constructed. So who constructed this building? The way that we talk about history is always changing, right? We learn new things, we add things into our stories, and now we're really fortunate to have documents that talk about the individuals that worked here on this construction project. So we know now that this Capitol building was constructed using the labor of enslaved men. So these individuals probably were enslaved here in Raleigh. They might have lived on local plantations nearby, and they would have participated in other types of work before their enslavers rented their labor to this project. Now, of course, even though they were working here, working hard every day as a part of this labor force, they were quarrying stone, they were doing brickwork or carpentry, these men would not have been compensated for their labor. Their compensation went to their enslavers. So imagine working here all day, this is hard, backbreaking labor, and not being compensated for that work. So again, the way that we talk about these individuals is always changing, and we actually are really fortunate now to know the names of some of the individuals that were employed here on the construction project for the Capitol in 1834. And so here I have a copy of a resource that's actually located in the State Archives of North Carolina. And this is a report, a commissioner's report on the rebuilding of the state capitol. So that's this building from December of 1834. So this report is actually signed, it was published and signed off on by the commissioners of the Capitol's construction project. And those men are listed here. Those are their names at the bottom of this page. But it's actually incredibly helpful that they have a full list of laborers that were here on this project. And they actually designate whether or not these individual men were enslaved, and what type of labor they were actually in charge of doing, and how much they were compensated for their labor. So here on this list, I'm going to point out one name, actually right here at the top. So this individual was named Glasgow Saunders, and he is actually one of the most highly compensated enslaved men on this list of laborers. So it doesn't tell us exactly what kind of labor Glasgow was doing here on the construction project, but we know that his labor was valued very highly. So, here he's paid $1 per day. And you see most of the other individuals who were enslaved here were only making 50 cents per day. And of course, I'm saying they were being compensated, their enslavers were being compensated for their labor. But again, this dollar amount shows us that Glasgow's skills, or his work was considered highly skilled. So another thing to look at when looking at this list of laborers is that Glasgow Saunders is listed here, and underneath his name are two other individuals with the last name Saunders. So you see there's a Peter Saunders and there's a Washington Saunders. And both of those individuals were compensated significantly less than Glasgow. So you see, to Glasgow's dollar per day, those two individuals were only paid 15 cents and 20 cents per day, right? And again, I'm saying they were paid that, but their enslavers were compensated for their labor. But when researching and interpreting and talking about the history and the lives of enslaved people, sometimes it's really difficult to know what their day-to-day realities were, because so often our historic resources are written from the perspectives of the enslavers. So when you see these people, enslaved people appearing in the narrative, they're being written about by their enslavers, right? So we really don't know a lot about what Glasgow's life was like on a day-to-day basis, what exactly he was doing here at the Capitol. And we don't know who those two individuals, Peter and Washington, were either. Were they related to Glasgow? Were they apprenticed to him? And since his labor was so highly valued, maybe he was allowed to bring assistance here? We just don't know. So often when we're researching and telling stories of enslaved people, we're really piecing together this story. Another thing to learn on this list is down there at the very bottom, it actually has compensation listed for a horse and cart. And you can see the horse and cart was compensated, or the owner of the horse and cart was compensated $1.25 per day. And that was more than almost every enslaved person working on this project. So that shows you that the labor of the horse and cart was valued more highly than an enslaved man. Thank you so much for joining us on the first installment of this Learn at Home program with North Carolina's historic sites on this Throwback Thursday. And we hope that you join us again for the next of our video installments. Until then, be sure to check out some of the content that's being posted by other sites in the North Carolina Division of State Historic Sites. And we hope to see you soon back here at the Capitol.